Good morning. Today we'll start with internal force convection. Liquid or gas flow through pipes or ducts is commonly used in heating and cooling applications. The fluid in such applications is forced to flow by a fan or a pump through a tube that is sufficiently long to accomplish the desired heat transfer. In this chapter, we will pay attention to the determination of friction factor and convection coefficient, since they are directly related to the pressure drop and heat transfer rate. There is a fundamental difference between external and internal flow. In external flow, the fluid has free surface and thus boundary layer over surface is free to grow indefinitely. In internal flow, however, fluid is completely confined by the inner surface of the tube and thus there is a limit on how much boundary layer can grow. So you have noticed fluids, especially liquids, are transported in circular pipes. This is because pipes can withstand large pressure difference between inside and outside. Non-circular pipes are usually used in applications such as heating and cooling system of building, where pressure difference is literally small and manufacturing installation costs are lower. For fixed surface area, circular tubes give the most heat transfer for the least pressure drop. The term pipe, duct, tube and conduct are usually used interchangeably for flow sections. In general, flow section of circular cross section are referred to as pipes and flow section of non-circular cross section are called ducts. Small diameter pipes are usually referred to as tubes. The friction between fluid layers in a tube may cause a slight rise in fluid temperature as a result of mechanical energy being converted to thermal energy, but this friction heating is too small to warrant any consideration in calculations. The primary consequence of friction in fluid flow is pressure drop. That is, it is reasonable to assume that any temperature change in fluid is due to heat transfer. But frictional heating must be considered for flows that involve highly viscous fluids with large velocity gradients. In most practical applications, the flow of fluid through a pipe or duct can be approximated as one-dimensional, and thus the properties can be assumed to vary in one dimension only or one direction. For the properties, we will also take the average temperature, so bulk average values over the cross section, mean velocity and mean temperature. In external flow, the free stream velocity served as a convenient reference velocity for use in evaluation of Rawl number and friction coefficient. In internal flow, there is no free stream and thus we need to alternative. The fluid velocity in the tube changes from 0 at the surface because of no slip to the maximum at the center of the tube. Therefore, it is convenient to work with average mean velocity Vm, which remains constant for incompressible flow. So average mean velocity is defined as the velocity, average velocity of the fluid, which will cause same mass flow rate through the pipe as in case of varying velocity. So this is the conservation of mass principle, that is mass is equal to density into average velocity into cross section area is equal to density into varying velocity in the radial direction. So this Vrx here is a velocity profile. Then the mean velocity for incompressible flow in a circular tube of radius r can be expressed as, so take the density and cross section area in the denominator side, you will get this relation. Put the value of dAc, which is 2 pi r dr. So take the constant term out of integral, which is 2 pi will cancel out. It is 2 by r square integral v r comma x r dr. So this is your mean velocity, mean average mean velocity, which is equal to this. So if you know the mass flow rate, this term, you can calculate this mean average velocity. Also, if you know the velocity profile, you can calculate the, if you know this value, you can calculate the average mean velocity. When a fluid is heated or cooled as it flows through a tube, Temperature of the fluid at any cross section changes from Ts at the surface, this temperature, to which is of the wall, to the minimum in case of heating at the center. This is minimum temperature at the center in case of heating when this Ts is more than this temperature. In fluid flow, it is convenient to work with average mean temperature. So we will replace this varying temperature with a Tm, average mean temperature, that remains uniform at the cross section. Unlike the mean velocity, the mean temperature will change in the flow direction whenever the fluid is heated or cooled. The value of mean temperature Tm is determined from the requirement that the conservation of energy principle be satisfied. That is, energy transported by fluid through a cross section in actual flow must be equal to the energy that would be transported through the same cross section if the fluid were at constant temperature Tm. We know energy transported by fluid is equal to m Cp Tm. This is energy transported by fluid, which is equal to Cp T del m dot integration of m. So you can write instead of del m, because density and Cp is constant, instead of del m you can write V dAc integral of AC, where V is your velocity. So equate this equation and this equation, take this mCp at the denominator side, you will get this equation here. Instead of dAc, fill the value 2 pi r dr integral 0 to r, and fill the value of mass, which is equal to density into volume velocity mean into pi r square. From this relation, take this value and put here at this place, you will get this equation. We know this temperature is a function of r and x, and this velocity is also a function of r and x. So rest term will cancel out. You are left with this relation, integral 0 to r T Rx Vrx and rdr. So this is your mean temperature. Note that mean temperature of fluid changes during heating or cooling. Laminar turbulent flow in tubes. Flow in a tube can be laminar or turbulent depending on the flow conditions. Fluid flow is streamlined and thus laminar at low velocities, but turns turbulent as the velocity increases beyond a critical value. Transition from laminar to turbulent flow does not occur suddenly, rather it occurs over some range of velocity where the flow fluctuates between laminar and turbulent. For flow in a circular pipe, the Reynolds number is defined as density Vm, mean fluid velocity, diameter divided by viscosity, dynamic viscosity. You can replace with kinetic viscosity. So this is Reynolds number in case of pipe. For flow through non-circular pipe, the Reynolds number as well as the Nusselt number and the friction factor are based on hydraulic diameter dH. So this is in case of circular pipe, we have this diameter. In case of square duct, we will use hydraulic diameter, which is defined as 4AC by P, where AC is your cross section area, this cross section area, and P is the parameter. So hydraulic diameter, if you check in case of circular tube, it will become D. Hydraulic diameter is defined such that it reduced to ordinary diameter D for circular tubes. For a square duct, hydraulic diameter is equal to 4A square by 4A is equal to A. For a rectangular duct, hydraulic diameter is equal to 4AB divided by 2 into A plus B, which is equal to 2AB divided by A plus B. So this is the hydraulic diameter in case of rectangular duct. So it is certainly desirable to have a precise values of Reynolds number for laminar, transition and turbulent flows, but this is not the case in practice. This is because transition from laminar to turbulent flow also depends on degree of disturbance of flow by surface roughness, pipe vibrations and fluctuation in pipe. But Under most practical condition, the flow in tube is to be laminar if Reynolds number less than 2300. So the flow is laminar. If Reynolds number lies between 2300 and 10,000, so which is the transitional flow, and if it is greater than 10,000, then it is called turbulent flow. Also, it should be kept in mind that the laminar flow can be maintained at much higher Reynolds number in very smooth pipe by avoiding flow disturbance and tube vibration. In such carefully controlled experiments, laminar flow has been maintained at Reynolds numbers of up to 1 lakh. The entrance region. Consider a fluid entering a circular tube at a uniform velocity v. So this is the fluid at inlet with uniform velocity v. The fluid particle in the layer in contact with the surface of tube will come to a complete stop. So you can see these particles which are just in contact in the tube are at zero velocity. They will come to complete stop. So this layer will also slow down the adjacent particle. This layer will slow down the adjacent layer also as a result of friction between this layer and this layer. So this layer will be slowed down. To make up for this velocity reduction, the velocity at the fluid at the midsection of the tube will have to increase to keep the mass rate throughout the tube constant. So at the midsection, the velocity will start to increase as compared to this. You can see this midsection velocity will start to increase at the center midsection. As a result, a velocity boundary layer develops along the tube. You can see this is the velocity boundary layer which will start to develop in the tube. The thickness of this boundary layer will increase throughout the tube until it will reach at the midsection. The region from the tube entrance to the point at which the boundary layer merges at center line is called hydrodynamic entrance region. So this region from this to this, where your boundary layer merges at the midsection, is called hydrodynamic entrance region, and the length of this region is called hydrodynamic entry length, which is equal to LH. Flow in the entrance region is called hydrodynamic development flow, since this is the region where the velocity profile develops, and region where your velocity profile has completely developed is called hydrodynamically fully developed region. The velocity profile in fully developed region is parabolic in laminar flow and somewhat flatter in turbulent flow. Now consider a fluid at a uniform temperature entering a circular tube whose surface is maintained at a different temperature. So this is fluid entering in a tube with temperature Ti, and Ts is a surface temperature which is different from this fluid temperature. This time the fluid particle in the layer in contact with the surface of tube will assume surface the temperature. So due to the temperature difference of surface and this fluid, there is a heat transfer will initiate, which is convective heat transfer in the tube, and which will lead to the development of thermal boundary layer along the tube. So in the same way as in the previous case you had the velocity boundary layer, same where you had a thermal boundary layer, and at this point it will meet. So this whole region for the development of the thermal boundary layer and up to this point where your thermal boundary layer is maximum, thickness is maximum, is called thermal entrance region, and beyond that where your temperature profile is same, fully developed, that is called thermal fully developed region. The region of flow over which the thermal boundary layer develops and reach the tube center is called thermal entrance region. So this region is your thermal entrance region, and the length of this region is called thermal entry length LT. So this length is called LT. The thermally fully developed region, the region in which flow is both hydrodynamically and thermally developed, and thus both velocity and dimensionless temperature profile remain unchanged is called fully developed flow. Means this velocity profile will remain unchanged and this your temperature profile will remain unchanged is called fully developed flow, where both will fully develop, velocity profile as well as your temperature profile. So hydrodynamic fluid developed flow means that your variation of velocity with respect to r and x is equal to 0. You can see here in this case velocity profile won't change, so this must be equal to 0. And thermally fluid developed means that your dimensionless value, this and derivative of this with respect to must be equal to 0. The friction factor is related to the shear stress at the surface, which is related to the slope of velocity profile at the surface. Noting that the velocity profile remains unchanged in hydrodynamically fully developed region, the friction factor also remains constant in this region. Means in this region your friction factor will remain constant. A similar argument can be given for heat transfer coefficient in thermally fully developed region. Means in this region your heat transfer coefficient will also remain constant. In thermally fully developed region, the derivative of this term with respect to x is 0 by definition, and thus this term is independent of x. If it is derivative with respect to 0 means this term does not depend on x, then the derivative of this term with respect to r must also be independent of x. That is derivative del by del r of this term ts minus t divided by ts minus tm when r is equal to r is equal to, now this term is constant, so it will become minus del t by del r divided by ts minus tm, which is a not function of x. Means this is also independent of x. From definition we know that the surface heat flux, which is hx ts minus tm, is equal to k del t by del r, and this function here, when you take this value at the denominator side, you will get this equation. Because this value is independent on x, it means that we conclude that the thermally fully developed region of a tube, the local heat transfer coefficient is constant, does not vary with x. Means your h, that is local heat transfer coefficient, will be constant in this region, thermally developed region, and it won't vary with x. Therefore we conclude both friction and convection coefficients remain constant in fully developed region of tube. During laminar flow in a tube, the magnitude of dimensionless Prandtl number is a measure of relative growth of velocity and thermal boundary layers. For fluid flow with Prandtl number 1, such as gases, the two boundary layers essentially coincide with each other. Consider a fluid that is being heated or cooled in a tube as it flows through it. The friction factor and the heat transfer coefficient are highest at the tube inlet, where the thickness of the boundary layer is 0 and decrease gradually to the fully developed values as shown in figure. Therefore the pressure drop and heat flux are higher at the entrance of the tube, and the effect of entrance region is always to enhance the average friction and heat transfer coefficient for the entire tube. This enhancement can be significant for short tubes but negligible for long tubes. So this is point beyond which your convection heat transfer coefficient is constant. So means this is your, up to here is your thermal boundary layer up to this point, and this LT is called thermal boundary layer length, and this up to where your friction coefficient will change, and beyond this your frictional coefficient is constant. So up to this region it is called velocity boundary layer, and this LH is called your hydrodynamic length,
entry lengths. The hydrodynamic entry length is usually
taken to be the distance from the tube entrance where the friction coefficient is within 2% of the fully developed value. So this is your hydrodynamic entry length. In case of laminar flow, the hydrodynamic and thermal entry lengths are given by this relation. This is your hydrodynamic entry length. This is your thermal boundary layer length LT. You can see if you put here Reynolds number 20, these terms will cancel out and your hydrodynamic laminar length become equal to the diameter. So it will become equal to D if you put Reynolds number 20 here. And if you take Reynolds number 2300, it will become 115D. In turbulent flow, the intense mixing during random fluctuation usually overshadow the effect of momentum and heat diffusion. It means at the turbulent flow, your friction factor and heat transfer coefficient remain constant in fully developed laminar or turbulent flow, since the velocity and normalized temperature profile do not vary in the flow direction. Also, your boundary layer thickness, hydrodynamic boundary layer thickness is equal to 1.359 Reynolds raised to power 1/4. So you can see it is a very weak power of Reynolds number, which is 1/4. For Reynolds number of 10,000, this will become 11D, and if you put Reynolds number here 10 raised to power 5, it will become 43D. So we generally take that for a hydrodynamic length to be 10 diameters, means we will take it 10D, and we will take these two equal for turbulent thermal boundary layer. In turbulent flow, the intense mixing during random fluctuations usually overshadows the effect of momentum and heat diffusion, and therefore the hydrodynamic and thermal entry lengths are of about the same size and independent of Prandtl number. Also, you can see from this figure that your friction factor and your heat transfer coefficient remain constant in fully developed laminar flow. This is your fully developed flow, so they are almost constant. So the hydrodynamic entry length for turbulent flow can be determined from this relation. You can see it is a very weak function of Reynolds number. If you put Reynolds number 10,000, it will come to 11D. If you put Reynolds number 10 raised to power 5, it will come to be 43D. So we take, in practice, it is generally agreed that the interest effects are confined within a tube length of 10 diameter. So we will consider this value for hydrodynamic length, and for thermal boundary layer we will consider this equal to 10D, 10 times the diameter of the pipe. The variation of local Nusselt number along a tube in turbulent flow for both uniform surface temperature and uniform surface flux is given. You can see this is a dark line which shows that surface temperature is constant, uniform surface temperature, and this dotted line shows uniform heat flux. You can see for the different Reynolds number, this graph is between Nusselt number and the tube length, which is x by d dimensionless factor. You can see the Nusselt number approach uniform and reaches a constant value at a distance of less than 10 diameter when your x by d is just at this point, which means x is approximately 10D. So it will reach a constant value. The Nusselt number for the uniform surface temperature and uniform heat flux, means this pink solid line and dotted line are same at the entry region and same at the fully developed region, means at this region and this region they are same, and in this region and this region Nusselt number is independent of type of boundary condition, whether it is a constant temperature or constant flux, the Nusselt number is same. General thermal analysis. You will recall that in the absence of any work interaction such as electric resistance heating, The conservation energy equation for steady flow of fluid in a tube can be expressed as Q is equal to MC, T exit minus T inlet. So this is a tube. You can say that this is energy at the inlet, MCPTI, and this is energy at the outlet. So energy balance, if there is a heat transfer into the tube, temperature will rise, and this heat transfer is equal to MCP del T. So this is your energy balance here. Now when your heat is supplied to the tube, there are two methods. Either it will be supplied with a constant surface heat flux, means your heat is added through this tube by supplying constant heat flux, or either this is supplied by maintaining this surface temperature, means Ts is equal to constant, where Ts, this is the surface temperature, and when it is more than this Ti, it will transfer the heat to this internal fluid. So these are two conditions which we can apply. The constant temperature surface condition is realized when a phase change process such as boiling or condensation occur at the outer surface of tube, while constant surface heat flux condition is realized when the tube is subjected to radiation or electric resistance heating uniformly from all directions. So surface heat flux is expressed as Qs is equal to Hx T surface minus Tm. So in this question, Ts is your surface temperature and Tm is the mean fluid temperature. Note that this value, mean fluid temperature of flowing fluid in a tube, must change during heating or cooling. So this will change during heating or cooling process. So when this convective heat transfer coefficient H is constant, the surface temperature must change when your Qs is constant. Means if this Tm will change, H is constant and Q is constant, your Ts must change to make these two values fixed. So in a nutshell we can say that either Ts must be constant, that is the one condition, and either Qs must be constant, but both can't be same or constant simultaneously during a heat transfer process. So there are total two cases, that is constant surface heat flux Q is equal to constant surface temperature Ts is equal to constant in case of heat exchange process in heat exchanger. Now discuss this case, constant surface heat flux, that is Qs is equal to constant. In the case Qs is equal to constant, the rate of heat transfer can be expressed as, that is Q is equals flux into surface area, and this must be equal to mass rate into Cp into T exit minus T inlet. So this is exit temperature, this is inlet temperature. Now if you rearrange this, you will have T is equal to Ti plus this factor. It means T exit is Ti plus this value here. Now in this graph, which is between temperature and length of the tube, you can see here this tube is subjected to the constant heat flux. You can see T is increasing linearly, so this Tm will increase linearly, and that exit is T, which is maximum temperature at the exit. So the linear increase in Tm can be justified from this factor, which is area As. Note that the mean fluid temperature increase linearly in the flow direction in the case of constant surface heat flux, since the surface area increases linearly in the flow direction. So these factors are constant, Qs is constant, M is constant, Cp constant, only As is varying, and its variation of As is linear. Take this cylindrical tube, in this area, if you take this up to this cross section area, you take this surface area, it is 2 pi RL, which is the surface area of the cylinder, and if you go along the length of the cylinder, the surface area will increase linearly. So this As is equal to the perimeter, which is constant, times the tube length, and tube length is varying from 0 to L. it means your AS is increasing linearly. So TE also, or means TM will increase linearly from TI to TE. So this is the variation of the temperature of the fluid. Now consider the surface temperature TS, which is temperature of surface. So this is the heat flux, which is equal to H into Ts minus Tm. We know heat flux is constant, H is constant, and it means this difference must be constant, Ts minus Tm. You can see in this graph, Ts minus Tm is constant throughout the length of this pipe. This difference is constant. Or we can say, rearranging, Ts is equal to Tm plus Qs by H. So this term is a constant value, and if you Tm will increase, Ts will increase by the same amount, which is clearly visible from this graph. In the fully developed region, which is this dotted line and this region, this is your fully developed region, the surface temperature Ts also increase linearly in a flow direction. The slope of this Tm, you can see this is the slope here, can be determined by applying steady flow energy balance equation to the tube slice of thickness dx. So let's take small element of this tube, that is dx here. Apply the energy balance here. So mCp Tm is the say fluid inlet, and mCp Tm plus dTm is the fluid outlet. So heat transfer in this element is equal to H into surface temperature minus mean temperature of the fluid into small dA, where dA is equal to perimeter of tube into dx, because this is a cylindrical tube. So this is the total heat supplied, which is Qs into Pdx, and this is your total energy change in the fluid, that is this energy, outlet energy minus inlet energy, is equal to mCp dTm. So dTm by dx is equal to Qs P by m dot Cp. This is a case of constant heat flux. It means this Qs is constant, perimeter is constant, because area which we had selected is fixed and tube perimeter is fixed, mass flow rate is fixed, Cp is fixed. So means this quantity is constant and this is also constant. So this relation shows that Tm will vary linearly, because derivative of Tm with respect to length of the tube is a constant quantity. So means Tm will vary linearly. So you can see here also the variation temperature of Tm is also linear. It is a line with slope of this value. This is the slope. Now take the derivative of this equation. When you take derivative, you will get this value here. dTm by dx is equal to dTs by dx. For thermally fully developed region, this is one more condition which you can consider here. So this is your dimensionless temperature profile. So when you take the derivative, it must be equal to 0 for fully developed region. So this region is your fully developed region. Now this term is constant, you can take out of derivative, and you can take the derivative of surface temperature del Ts by del x minus del T by del x, which is equal to 0. We will get this equation. Now you have to combine this equation, and this equation. We have three equations here, 8, 20, 21 and 22. When you combine, you will get this, which is equal to constant. So from this equation, we conclude that in a fully developed flow in a tube subjected to constant surface heat flux, the temperature gradient is independent of x, and thus the shape of temperature profile does not change along the tube. You can see temperature provided at this location is same as the temperature provided at x2 location. The temperature profile will remain same. So temperature is a function of radial direction, which means it will change along the radial direction of tube, but it is independent on the x. Whether you will check the temperature profile at this location of the tube x1 or x2, the temperature profile remain same. Constant surface temperature Ts, where surface temperature is constant. So in this case, this surface temperature is maintained constant. And this mean temperature of fluid is varying along the direction of flow length of the tube. So from Newton's law of cooling, the rate of heat transfer to or from a fluid is given by heat transfer coefficient, surface area of tube into del T average, where del T average is equal to Ts minus Tm average. You can see del T is varying, which is Tm minus Tm. Here del T is maximum, here del T is minimum, so we have to take the average. So here AS is the total heat transfer surface area, which is equal to pi dl, and del T average is some appropriate average temperature difference between the fluid and the surface. So del T average can be expressed approximately by arithmetic mean temperature difference, which is del Tm. Now what is del Tm? It is del Ti plus del Te divided by 2, means average of this difference plus this. So what is del Ti? We know this is Ts minus Ti, and del T is equal to Ts minus Te. You will get this value here. Now this component is the bulk mean fluid temperature, which is the arithmetic mean average of the mean fluid temperature at inlet and exit. So it is also called TB, bulk mean fluid temperature. So note that arithmetic mean temperature difference del Tm is simply the average of temperature difference between the surface and fluid at the inlet and exit of tube. Means this is your average of this temperature difference and this temperature difference. So in the definition, assumption is that mean fluid temperature varies linearly along the tube, which is hardly ever the case when Ts is equal to constant. Now for this case, when your surface temperature is constant, your mean temperature is varying along the direction of the tube length. The energy balance on differential control volume gives this relation. So energy balance on this control volume will give you this relation equation, which is equal to mCp dTm. So this equation represents increase in energy of the fluid represented by an increase in the mean temperature, which is dTm, is equal to the heat transfer to the fluid from the tube surface by convection, which is this. You can write dTm as minus d. You can place Ts minus Tm when you take the derivative of this, because Ts is constant, it will get eliminated. So these two terms are equal. You can replace this dTm here with this term, and on rearranging you will get this equation. Also replace this small element dAs by pdx, where p is parameter and dx is the small element of the tube, which is this dx here. Integrating this equation from x is equal to 0, which is tube inlet, and at tube inlet your Tm is equal to Ti, to x is equal to L, which is your tube exit. At this position Tm is equal to Te. You will get this equation here. Take this log on this side, you will get relation in terms of exponential, and find Te. You will get this relation. You can note that temperature difference between the fluid and surface decrease exponentially in the fluid direction. So this decrease is exponential, and this term, which is HAS by MCP, is a dimensionless parameter. It is called number of transfer units, NTU. So this term is called NTU, and is a measure of effectiveness of heat transfer system. For NTU means this term greater than 5, the exit temperature of the fluid becomes almost equal to the surface temperature. Means this exit temperature will become almost equal to the surface temperature for NTU greater than 5. So NTU is equal to HAS by MCP. You can see for this case, when your inlet temperature of fluid is 20, surface temperature is 100. If you submit in this equation, your exit temperature will come out to be 0.01 NTU, it is 20, for 1 it is 70, and for 5 it is almost 99.5. Noting that the fluid temperature can approach the surface temperature but cannot cross it, because surface temperature is higher than the fluid temperature. So fluid temperature cannot exceed the surface temperature. An NTU of 5 indicates that the limit is reached for heat transfer, and the heat transfer will not increase no matter how much we extend the length of tube. So one method of increasing NTU is by increasing surface area AS, which you can do by increasing the length of tube. But if you increase the AS and you increase the NTU beyond this limit of 5, it is useless. A large NTU and thus a large heat transfer surface area may be desirable from a heat transfer point of view, but it may be unacceptable from an economic point of view. The selection of heat transfer equipment usually reflects a compromise between heat transfer performance and cost. You can rearrange this equation for MCP. You will get this equation. This equation MCP is equal to HAS by log this. Also take this equation and join this equation with the previous equation. You will get this new equation, which is this. Now in this equation, del Tn is called logarithm mean temperature difference, which is equal to this. Instead of this, you can write del T minus del Ti by plus S surface here by plus Ts here. You can write in this form. This will become Ts minus Te. This is become del Te, and this Ts minus Ti become del Ti. From this definition, del Ti is equal to Ts minus Ti, and this